Congressman Gotteimer, thank you so much for sitting down with us here with TBN. Although recent negotiations with Iran have not yet concluded at the moment, we are recording this interview. We're not sure where things are standing, but you have decided not to remain quiet against what seems to be shaping up as a dangerous deal. Not only you did that, you also rallied behind you a bipartisan group of Democrat and Republican congressmen to send a letter to the president and express your concerns. So what are your concerns?
Well, I think, first of all, the entire approach since the beginning on JCPOA to me has been failed, right? So go back to the original deal. And so this is just a continuation of failure, right? It presumes that the Iranians leadership there will ever tell the truth, whether that's how much they actually wanted to enrich uranium, which first was keep the lights on. Yeah. Now it's to break out and have a nuclear weapon. In terms of their terrorist activity, which has not stopped, it's gotten worse, right? Not just through their proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Palestinian Jihad, attacks on Americans and our allies and our bases, but now the RGC has directly been attacking as well, right? So it's gotten worse. And if you, even in just the last weeks, you've seen the Iranians getting with their new close friends, the Russians and the Chinese, vis-a-vis against Ukraine, right? So and the idea that the Iranians are obviously sharing technology with the Russians on drones and giving them drones. But beyond that, this idea we're going to give uranium from Iran to the Russians to hold, right, in itself should be a deal killer. So they are a terrorist organization as designated by the United States of America, a foreign terrorist organization. We should not remove that designation. It's good the United States has backed off of that. But I remain very concerned about moving forward here for all the reasons I just mentioned. These are not folks, unfortunately, that you can trust and do business with. And to me, the last thing we should do is give billions of dollars to the Iranians to feed more terrorist activity, right? We're going to have to figure out other ways to approach them.
But here's what I'm curious about. You assumed office in 2017, right? Which means that in 2015, during the negotiations around the JCPOA and Benjamin Netanyahu's speech to Congress, you were observing it from sort of the outside.
Correct.
So I'm wondering if so were you holding these views even beforehand? Yes. And was the consequences of the JCPOA that led you there?
You know, it's interesting. So I opposed the deal as a candidate in a time where, of course, you're trying to make sure your party supports you. And I stood up to the party and obviously took a different view than the president, which wasn't so popular to do. But I felt very strongly. I mean, I think this has been consistently flawed. And then I got to Congress, and now this letter that I've led several letters to Congress. Every time it seems like there's momentum behind it. But most recently, we got 50 members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, including 34 Democrats, which is a big show of support to the administration saying, please don't move forward with this. We're very concerned. And if you're going to move forward, before you move forward with any deal, come to the Congress.
Let us know.
Let us know what you're talking about here, any side deals that you're making. Give us a sense of what this is about, because we're very concerned, rightly, about moving forward.
Have you received any security briefings? Do you know where things are standing in the negotiations?
So I've had many classified briefings over the months. Okay. Most recently, we did ask for another classified briefing. We've been in the district the last weeks, so I've asked for one when we're back next week. I've asked for a classified briefing, and hopefully we'll get one.
And do you expect the White House to release the draft document, the one that they've been recently negotiating in the last stages, the one that was put forward by the EU, to release it, if they're going to really go ahead with it to Congress?
Well, that's what we're asking. We're saying to them, Congress has a clear role here. Before you move ahead with anything, you should obviously share it.
But here's what we heard, that because it's not a new deal that's being discussed, rather a revival of an old deal, maybe the White House is not obligated to go this way through Congress. Like, what do you have to say to that?
That's been one of the questions now for more than a year.
So you're making the point.
Do they have to come to us or not? Some administration have said, yeah, they intend to come to us, and others have said, no, they don't. But what is very clear here, if they come to us, when you see 34 Democrats and obviously hosts of scores of Republicans against this, that's not going to be a favorable vote. And that's why I've said to the administration, let's hold on here. You have deep wells of concern in both parties. Don't move forward here, right? This is not the time to move forward, and especially under these terms.
With Russia in the background, but...
Correct.
Here's the thing.
And their terror activity continuing.
That's true. So Iran and Israel somehow became somewhat partisan issues in the United States. There are people that would say it happened around 2015 with the negotiations around the JCPOA under the Obama administration. You are trying to do bipartisan things, taking a bipartisan approach on these issues, Israel and Iran. But how do you see things from your perspective? Is it getting to this place where you can cooperate across the aisle?
You're totally right that the U.S.'s relationship should never and can never afford to be partisan. Right? It has to be a bipartisan issue, one. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, both sides try to exploit it and make it a partisan issue. Not just Democrats, but also Republicans. Right? I mean, they see, it's an opportunity to try to win some voters over, and obviously Democrats use this issue to some extreme Democrats try to use it as an issue as well. But the vast majority of both parties understand the importance of keeping this bipartisan. In fact, whenever you put up a vote on BDS, on the MOU, on all these important issues for the U.S.'s relationship,
military
support under the MOU, it's massively through the resource of the Iron Dome. It's massively bipartisan, and you lose 10 to 14 members. You lose, about 2% of the Congress goes the wrong way. And that to me is actually what people should know. This is not actually a hyper-partisan issue. People try to make it into one to fundraise or use it in political, but my whole focus is let's not allow partisanship to creep into this. It's dangerous for the United States of America, obviously dangerous for Israel, but Israel is our critical ally in the region to fight terror, right? It's our democracy. It's a beacon of democracy in the region. So that, to me, is what's important.
So here's one interesting data that I saw. There's an interesting poll by the University of Maryland that recently came out, and it showed that about a quarter of Democrat voters say that their congressional representatives lean more in favor of Israel than they do, especially on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So we're talking about a quarter of Democrat voters say it. Including President Biden and their representatives.
I want to see that poll.
A quarter of Maryland, the university, go ask them. So is it something that you personally feel in your
I think that
constituency?
It's interesting.
You're coming from New Jersey, so
that's why I would love to see how a question like that is asked. I find that Democrats and Republicans overall understand the strategic value of the relationship, that they understand how important it is to the United States of America. What I fear, to be honest with you, whether it's from the far right or the far left, what I worry about is when they're chirping and they have huge social media followings, especially with younger people. I worry a lot about the next generation. I worry a lot about what's happening on college campuses, including at Rutgers in New Jersey, which is our university in New Jersey. I worry a lot that has a very good relationship with Israel. I'm concerned when you see that false tropes are furthered, if that picks up speed, which is why I think it's very important that whenever we see it, we stand up to it, and we make it very clear that this is not a partisan issue. This is vital to our national security. But you're right, it's everything's always a fight. Look at anti-Semitism now.
Right.
It's in my state, it's second highest in the country. In New York, number one in the country. Incidents at record highs. People feel on lots of issues that they can do things and speak out. And the Oath Keepers, which is a domestic terror group, and are Holocaust deniers. Right? They testify that their leaders, their people who used to be members there, saying they felt uncomfortable because they were so anti-Semitic. You've got lots of groups that are saying things that are deeply concerning. We've got to stand up against that.
One last question. Sure. I want to take you out of Washington and back to the district for a second.
Sure.
Do you feel like your voters care much about Israel, foreign affairs, anti-Semitism, these issues that we just touched upon?
Yeah, listen, I'm very lucky to have a district with a lot of Jewish Americans in it. So this is an issue that people talk to me about all the time. But yeah, some places in the country, there are fewer folks who care about this. And listen, foreign policy, people at the end of the day, I get it, and what I'm focused on is helping
because you're very vocal about it.
Day-to-day affordability with their lives and what we do to make our country and our community stronger and better, and make sure we support law enforcement, our veterans. There's things day to day, but I think it's very important to our role in the world overall and to standing up for our values that we remind people how critical this relationship is for our protection. So if you want to just care about New Jersey, you should make sure that the relationship is strong because it's critical to fighting terror around the world.
On this note, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you. Thanks.